Hello, this is Yogeshwar, and this video will be discussing about a very important topic which is called Shadbala. Actually, Shadbala is a value which is calculated to know what planet has a high Shadbala, or in other words, what planet will be able to give good results based on its Shadbala value. Now, Shadbala again is a concept which has come from the great sage Parashara, and once again, these videos are designed so that we go back into the basics and we study the scriptures and what the great sages and the masters of astrology have said thousands of years ago, and to make sure that a lot of Vedic astrologers out there who are making predictions without going into details or without doing a proper study of the scriptures, and their readings may not be that accurate, and therefore we have to protect ourselves from such kind of so-called dealings which are going on in the world of Vedic astrology. So Shadbala is a very important concept which is coming directly from the sages, from the great sage Parashara. And like I said, if a Shadbala is high in value, that means the bala means power in Sanskrit, and Shad means six. So this is actually a translation of a six-fold strength which is calculated of a planet. And if the Shadbala is high, it has a capability of providing good results. If the Shadbala is low, the planet cannot provide good results. So when Vedic astrologers do an analysis, they do not go into these details. They just do an overview of the planets. They don't go into a lot of other factors which have to be taken into consideration. So it's important and imperative that we know what Shadbala is. So Shadbala is calculated by six kinds of balas or strengths, like its name suggests, six-fold strength. And when we add these six types of balas or six types of strengths, then we add up and the Shadbala value comes in, which is the value of all these six strengths or six balas. So if we break down these balas can be broken down. The first is considered as Sthana Bala. Sthana in Sanskrit means place. So basically how we calculate the Sthana Bala of a planet is, it is based on the positional strength of the planet. And again, if Sthana Bala is subdivided into 5 components, which will determine the strength of that planet based on its position. And this video will be too small to absorb all the big ways of calculating the Shadbala, because this topic is so large, but I'm kind of putting it in a short, concise form so that we understand it. So Shadbala is divided into 6 types of balas, as we've already discussed, 6 types of strengths. The first type of strength is Sthana Bala, which means the bala or strength of a planet based on its position. And again, Sthana Bala is broken down into 5 components. The first is Ocha Bala. Basically, it means that certain planets become strong based on the exact degree of their exaltation and become weak or inauspicious, I should say, rather than weak, at its exact degree of debilitation. Like for example, moon gets exalted at 3 degrees of Taurus, and it's at the maximum beneficial place for moon at that particular degree, and it gets debilitated at 3 degrees of Scorpio, where it gets a maximum points for being inauspicious, or rather getting 0 points as far as this bala is concerned. So Ocha bala is calculated for the degrees of the exaltation and the debilitation points. The second one component of the sthana bala is called Sapta Vargaja Bala, and the Sapta Vargaja Bala is calculated based on where the planet is located in terms of whether it's an own sign or not. So this strength is calculated for the position of the planet related to what sign it is, and it gets maximum points when it's its own sign, and it does not get high points when it's not in its own sign, or it gets very low points when it's sitting in an enemy sign. So Saptavaragaja Bala constitutes of that part of the position of the planet, like we discussed. Ocha Bala is about the exact exaltation and debilitation points, and this Saptavaragaja Bala is based on what sign it is placed on: friend, enemy, own. So it makes it points based on that. The third component of the sthana bala is Ojayogyama bala, and basically a planet gets points, more points or less points, based on whether it is sitting in an even or uneven sign, or how it is placed in a Navansha or a D9 chart. The fourth component is called Kendra Bala, where a planet, in terms of its positional strength, gets points based on whether it's sitting in a Kendra or not. And Kendra, as we know, is an angle house. So whether it's sitting in 1, 4, 7, and 10 houses will get the maximum points. And if it is not sitting in the Kendra houses, it'll get low points. So its strength somehow gets reduced, so its points also gets reduced. And the fifth and the last component of the sthana bala is Drakana bala, which is basically the positional strength of a planet based on whether the location of the planet is in the first Drakana, which is 1 to 10 degrees, second Drakana, which is 11 to 20 degrees, and the third Drakana, which is 21 to 30 degrees in a zodiac sign. And to calculate this, planets are divided into masculine planets, which are Sun, Jupiter, and Mars. Then there are neutral planets, as we know, Saturn and Mercury, and then there are female planets, Venus and Moon, and points are allocated based on where the masculine planets are placed in what Drakana, or where the neutral planets are placed in what Drakana, or where the female planets are placed in what Drakana. So this finishes our discussion on just the first part of the Shadbala, which is the Sthana Bala. And Sthana Bala, once again, like I have explained you, that this is a way of calculating a strength of the planet where it is positioned or placed. And this is broken down into 5 components, which we just discussed. Now, the second part, or the second component of the Shadbala, is Digbala. And Digbala is pretty much nothing, but it is an allocation of points and the strength of a planet based on where the planet is located, not in a certain sign as we have seen in the earlier Sthana Bala, but this time Digbala is based on what house it is placed, whether it's placed in the first house, second house, third house, fourth house. So it's not about the zodiac signs as we discussed in the Sthana Bala. Digbala is about what house, and based on what planet is sitting in what house, it gets strength or it gets weakness. So a planet with a higher strength on Digbala will get more points based on which house it is placed, more Digbala points rather where it is placed in terms of house, not in zodiac signs. So this is one way of determining the points in terms of a Digbala. For example, Mars gets a Digbala strength in the 10th house. It is very strong in the 10th house. So that's one example. And Saturn gets a maximum Digbala when it is in the western direction, which means it's the 7th house. So when Saturn is sitting in the 7th house, it gets Digbala, meaning it gets very strong, so it is eligible to get maximum Digbala points. And this ends the discussion on Digbala in a very short, concise form. It is a very long discussion if you go into details as to how these points are calculated, and I'm not going to get into details into that. You can do some more research on that yourself, but in a nutshell, this is what Digbala is about: the strength of a planet based on which house it is situated. The third component of the Shadbala, which is the sixth divisional strength of a planet, is Kalabala. So we discussed the first Sthanabala, we discussed the second Digbala, and now we're discussing the third component, which is the Kalabala. And Kala means time in Sanskrit. So it has to do with the strength of the planets based on the time of the day. So when a person is born, what planet is powerful at that particular time will determine how powerful that planet is. Like, for example, Moon, Saturn are powerful during night time. And then again, this Kalabala also is subdivided into various components like Divaratri Bala, meaning whether they are powerful more in midnight or how powerful they are at noontime, so on and so forth. And then again, as far as time is concerned, how powerful that planet is in a Pakshabala, what Paksha it is in, whether it's in the waxing phase of the moon or in the waning phase of the moon, which in Sanskrit is described as Shukla Paksha and Krishna Paksha. First 15 days, next 15 days. So for 15 days, when the moon is increasing, it is Shukla Paksha. When the next term comes, when the moon is decreasing, it becomes Krishna Paksha. So Paksha Bala also is a part of the Kala Bala, like we have discussed Divaratri Bala, based on what time of the day the planet becomes more powerful and which planet becomes more powerful. And similarly, Paksha Bala is what time of the time in terms of the waxing of the moon, which is Shukla Paksha, or whether a planet becomes powerful or weak during the decreasing of the moon, which is called Krishna Paksha. So that's another component of the Kalabala. And then there is Tribhaga Bala, where that means the period of daylight is divided into three equal parts. That's why it's called Tribhaga Bala. So Tribhaga means division into three parts. So a day is divided into three parts, and then there are rules which planet gets more powerful in which part of the day. So Tribhaga Bala is basically calculated according to that. And then another component of Kalabala is Abda Bala, which means that the first, for example, there's a planet which is in a planet gets powerful in a particular day of the year. So strength of a planet is calculated based on what day of the year that planet is. So once you draw a birth chart, you will figure out what day of that person is born and what planets are sitting and what day of the year that planet gets more powerful or not. So Abdabala points are calculated based on that. And again, this is a component of the Kalabala which we are calculating. And then there are other ways, or other components rather, of the Kalabala, which are Masabala, Varabala, Horabala, Ayanabala, Yuddhabala. But in a nutshell, I will tell you that just remember that Kalabala, which is a component of the Shadbala, is determining the strength of the planet based on the particular time. It is actually a basis of calculating the strength of the planet based on what time the planet is placed, or what time the planet is placed in a birth chart. So it gains or loses points based on that. And from Kalabala we move into Chestabala, which of course is another very complicated way of calculating, but in a nutshell, it is basically Chestabala points are calculated based on the speed of the planet, how fast a planet is, and or how slow a planet is, because there is a possibility that a slow moving planet gets a high Chestabala, because when the planets are slow, they have time to provide their effects more effectively. So a Chestabala point will be higher if a planet is slower moving, and a Chestabala points will be low if a planet is faster moving. So that's one component of the Shadbala, which is the Chestabala. And the fifth component of the Shadbala is how much of a luminosity a planet has. And we know that Sun is the brightest planet, so it has the highest point for the Naisargika Bala, because this strength or this basis of providing points is based on the brightness of the planet, and Saturn is the faintest, so it gets the lowest points for Naisargika Bala. And the last, which is out of the 6 strengths of the planet, which makes a Shadbal, 6 divisional strengths which forms the Shadbal, and the last out of it is Drikbala. And Drikbala is called strength of a planet based on whether they are getting aspected by benefics or not. So planets which are aspected by benefics will get a maximum points for Drikbala, or will get maximum Drikbala points, and planets which are aspected by malefics, then they will get lower or even negative Drikbala points. So as you see on the screen, I have divided the Shadbala, which is 6 divisional strengths, into 6 types of strength: Sthanabala, Digbala, Kalabala, Chestabala, Naisargika Bala, and Drikbala. And these 6 types of strengths are further subdivided into other components, which I have tried to discuss mostly, but it's not possible to discuss each and every component in detail in this video. But whatever I could, I have kind of discussed. But you have a fairly good idea of, the 6 divisional strengths is the Shadbala. It is broken down into 6 types of strengths. Sthanabala is based on the positional strength of the planet. Digbala is based on the location of a planet, not in a sign, but in a certain house. Kalabala, the planet gets maximum points basically on the strength of the planet, which it gains because of time, what time of the day that planet is. Chestabala is pretty much about the speed of the planets, how fast or slow the planets are at that particular moment when the person is born. And Naisargika Bala depends on how luminous the planet is, and we've discussed that Sun gets the maximum because it's the brightest, and Saturn gets the lowest points because it's the faintest. And finally, the 6th is Drikbala, which is nothing but a planet getting more and less points based on whether it's getting an aspect by a benefic or an aspect by a malefic. And when we add these 6 types of strengths, we come up to the final total, which is the total Shadbala, which determines the strength of the planet and which will determine how auspicious or inauspicious a planet is in a birth chart. And a good astrologer can very well determine based on what he has understood from the strength through the Shadbala. So hopefully you've understood the basic concept of Shadbala, and you'll do more research on this, go into details, study it more, and you'll understand. And go and check out my link to my website below, and we will be taking up another video in our next topic. Thank you.